saw a very big crowd with all kinds of people. In the midst of the crowd, I saw the poor people, including the children. With their hands lifted towards me, they called out, "Come, come save us. Bring us to Jesus." I saw the crowd again. I could see great sorrow and suffering on their faces. Our Lady was facing the great crowd, and I was kneeling near her. I did not see her face, but I heard her say, "Take care of them. They are mine. Bring them to Jesus. Carry Jesus to them. Fear not. Teach them to say the rosary, the family rosary, and all will be well. Fear not. Jesus and I will be with you and your children." Again, I saw the same great crowd. They were covered in darkness, but I could see them. Our Lord was on the cross. Our Lady, a little distance away from the cross, and I was a little girl in front of her. Her left hand was on my left shoulder, and her right hand was holding my right arm. We were both facing the cross. Our Lord said, "I have asked you. They have asked you. My mother has asked you. Will you refuse to do this for me, to take care of them, to bring them to me?"
And Bishop called me and he said, "Frank, are you going to be home? You and Monica?" I said, "Yes." And that's all he said. And next thing you know, he shows up about 45 minutes later, an hour. And my wife and I were both standing out on the porch, and we saw all 4 doors open up. And then we saw the sorries. And we knew that was Mother.
She devoted her life completely in service of the poor.
I think she was just a unique lady.
I'm very proud that she's a fellow Indian for me.
I think she's taught me a great deal during my priesthood now, after meeting her and knowing about her, to be able to serve people and to really go out to whomever needs my assistance and to reach them with love and compassion and to follow the example she has been for me.
And she was well known for being the saint of the gutters, associating with the poorest of the poor and with the dying.
I think as a person, she's always been a saint.
Her love is so enormous for Jesus. No one is beyond love and care.
Where does this love begin? In our own family, in our own home. How does it begin? By praying together. Family that prays together stays together. And if you stay together, you will love one another as God loves each one of you.
She was born Agnes in Skopje, Yugoslavia on August 26, 1910 to Dronda and Nikola Bojakska. The poor are neither our relatives nor friends, but surely they too are children of God. Never forget the poor, who are indeed our brothers and sisters. These words of her mother touched the heart of little Agnes and took deep roots in her mind. At the age of 18, Agnes chose her vocation of love.
Mother Teresa had already come to Calcutta at the age of 18 to join the Loreto Sisters.
On January 6, 1929, she arrived in Calcutta, India, after a long journey. Sister Teresa made her first profession of vows on May 25, 1931, receiving the name of her patron saint, Therese of Lisieux.
She had been working in Calcutta in the school for the girls in the Bengali section.
On September 10, 1946, while on a train journey to Darjeeling, she heard the call of Jesus to follow him into the slums.
There were challenges from outside, but also from inside. She was frightened. And especially, she was anxious to discern well that Jesus is asking this from her and not being an illusion. Once that was sure, with the help of a spiritual director, she approached the bishop, who again took about 2 years of discernment before she got the permission from the Vatican to begin her new way of life as an excrostrated sister to live in the slums of Calcutta.
In 1987, there were 12 million people living in Calcutta, and I spent months working with one. I reflect back on that because Mother Teresa always says, and it was my experience, that you work one life at a time. And it's that one life that's closest to you that you pour yourself into, and the numbers don't matter.
From those humble beginnings, she built upon the same message of love and care and extended it to as many people as she could.
She didn't hide behind government programs and structures and agendas, important though these things are. She wanted the human touch so that it would give true hope, true comfort, true love to people on a one-to-one basis. And she was doing this with people living in awful conditions, lying in gutters.
I think her deeds have just made her immortal.
The life of Mother Teresa in its fullness is something that can appeal to each of us.
I wouldn't hesitate to call her Saint Teresa. She's always been a saint.
Today, in the world, there's so much suffering because of that want of prayer, of unity in the family. So today, when we are together, let us make one strong resolution that we will bring prayer in our family, that we will teach our children to pray and pray with them. And you will see the joy and the love and the peace that will come into your hearts.
She was a short-statured woman, a nun, but not quite looking like a nun, clad in a white sari, alone with only a 5 rupee note in her hand. Yet her wealth lay in her heart, with unshakable faith in God and absolute confidence in the promise He made. She humbly walked to the dark holes to serve the sick and the suffering with the love of God and to beg for the sake of the poor.
When she was in a village and the children of the orphanage were starving. And so she made this trek into the local village to the local baker, who obviously was having people asking him for food and anything each day. And she went calmly up to him and asked him for some bread for the starving orphans. And the baker actually spat in her face. Now, she took out a handkerchief, wiped her face, looked up at the baker and said, "Now, that was for me. What do you have for the starving orphans?" And he was so shocked by her response that it embarrassed him to actually give her bread for the children, which I just thought was quite incredible. And
I think also the thing that Mother Teresa taught me was that in starting a new community, there are always difficulties, but God's always going to be by your side to help you. And as I quote so often, God is never far from any one of us. And I think Mother Teresa really felt that too.
While going about to meet the needs of the poor, Mother Teresa often encountered people dying in the streets. The hospitals would not accept them as they were considered hopeless cases.
One day, she told us this story. She was walking through the streets with her nuns, and On the corner of the street, she said she spotted, it looked like a bunch of rags with flies coming out of them, but why were the people running from it? So she went over to see. And as she looked down, she and 2 other nuns, they saw this man lying there, covered with worms from his head to his toes, filled with worms. Quickly, quickly, get me a blanket. The sisters ran and got her a blanket. When she went to pick up this man from the street, she went, put her hands down, the whole back side of his body split from the top part, and he was still alive. Still alive. She wrapped him in the blanket, carried him gently to the truck, and gently sang to him and talked to him all the way back to the house of the destitute and dying, where she would take care of him till he died. When they got there, she began with this words to her nuns. Tweezers, quickly! The nuns ran, got her the tweezers, and one by one, she took every worm from his face, his body, his ears. Every place on him there was a worm. She didn't leave one. And he looked up at her, a tear running down his face. In Bengali, he said, Why do you do this for me when people look at me and run from my sight? She said, because I see Jesus in you.
Seeking to receive those destined to face the end of their lives alone, unwanted and abandoned by all, Mother Teresa opened the first home for the dying on August 22, 1952, in Kalighat, and named it in honor of Mary's Immaculate Heart as Nirmal Hriday, which means pure heart in the Bengali language.
This is the home for the dying destitute called Nirmal Hriday, which Mother Teresa herself began in 1952. And this is called Mother's First Love because this is where Mother began a home for the dying for the first time.
There, she and her sisters would bring people from the streets who were dying and offer them accommodations, food, and basic medical care. But most of all, they offered them tender love.
And after some days of this service being done here, some kind of complaint was filed against her that she is doing something not okay, not right.
But many religious fanatics were not happy with these works. They were able to influence corporation officers and the local police commissioner to inspect Mother's home for the dying. After his visit, the police commissioner summoned those who complained about the home for the dying and said, I had promised you that I would send Mother Teresa away from this place. I will fulfill this promise, but before I do, I want you to comply with me that this work, which Mother and her sisters do without any disgust or reproach to those dying people, that this will be done by your mothers and sisters. If we have the statue of the goddess Kali made of stone on one side, then here is a living goddess among us.
Our inspiration for coming here is we had a few weeks of vacation and we wanted to help the people the way Mother Teresa did, the poorest of the poor.
We arrived to India because we wanted to do volunteering with Mother Teresa.
And we decided to come to India because the example of Mother Teresa is a big example of generosity.
Mother Teresa, we identify ourselves with her because she used to fight for these people. That's why she's very famous in Spain and in the Basque Country, and that's why we came here to help people.
And we want to help to the people who don't have the same thing that we have.
So here we are in Shishu Bhavan. This is Mother Teresa's second mission, which she started. It was a social unrest at that time. So there were many refugees, there were many people with malnutrition, they were starving on the roads. So then there was a great inflow of these very poor children, teenagers, half fatherless, many fatherless, or full orphans. So that was actually the beginning of this house, Shishu Bhavan, for the very poor.
Mother entered into Yemen in 73 and offering the president the service to the poorest, sick people and to the lepers. And Mother went beyond. When she was serving the lepers, she saw their needs for medical care, for food and for housing, but also their spiritual need to be able to pray in the mosque. She asked the government, please build a mosque for your people that they can go and worship.
The telephone was the only so-called luxury in the mother house. Appliances like a television, fax, computer, or radio were not available. To those who made the suggestion of having at least a radio to know what was going on in the world, Mother would instantly reply, "We already know the reality." No man in this world must be left to live in sadness, must not die of being unloved. Not a single tear must fall from them ignored. This was Mother's dream. I cannot give the love a mother has towards her child, but I have never abandoned a single child, never, because every child is a wonderful gift from God.
The humanity can go to any extent to get what they want, and abortion is just a manifestation of that. So I think there was a much deeper message in there than just abortion. And I think she was trying to very clearly say that overall, the way humanity is moving, the way things are being done is not right.
Even in communist nations such as Russia and Cuba, Mother Teresa established homes for the poor.
Mother's desire to bring the presence of Jesus, to make him known and loved in the communist countries was burning in her heart from her childhood. All the possible efforts she took, and she was prepared repeatedly with the sisters and the boxes to enter China, and it did not happen. And still today, daily we are praying to be able for China, and also with the intention to eventually set up our communities in China.
From the Loreto convent, with 3 saris and a 5 rupee bill, she left for the slums of Calcutta. Refusing nothing to God, she lived a humble life among the poor and the needy, leading to the birth of the Missionaries of Charity.
I remember that Mother was preparing to go to Ethiopia, who had several periods of famine, and that particular famine was very severe, and thousands of people were losing their lives because of lack of food. And she recalls that she went to the chapel praying, what is the Lord asking from me? Then in her mind came President of America. So she contacted the president and asked him to send food from America by flight and drop it where the famine zone was. It saved many lives.
Mother Teresa's charitable works attracted the attention of the world, and she received many awards and honors. Some of those included the Magsaysay Award for Peace and the International Understanding, the United States Presidential Medal of Freedom, and Honorary Citizenship of the United States. But the award that caught the attention of the world was the Nobel Peace Prize, which Mother Teresa received in 1979.
She's one of the gems of India. She was conferred with the Bharat Ratna. The Bharat Ratna is an award instituted by the government and conferred to people who've done exceptionally well for the country and identify with the country. So she was one of the gems of India in that sense. And
Her greatest wealth was poverty, and her religion was love. With a deeply lined face and clad in a white sari, she went through the slums to fill heaven with the poor, and the world lovingly called her Mother. On the night of September 5th, 1997, at 8:30, the electricity failed and the whole house was plunged into darkness. Breathing became more and more difficult for Mother. These are the last words that fell from her lips. Jesus, I love you. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I adore you. At 9:30, when Calcutta was still in darkness, the earthly life of the one who brought so much light to the world was extinguished.
There was one particular thing that I know about Mother Teresa. That is her conviction and her belief in what she wanted to do and pursuing that relentlessly.
And I think that she was sent on a mission that we have yet to complete.
She really mixed and devoted herself completely to spending her life with the lowest of the low, and that is what attracts me most about Mother Teresa.
What Mother Teresa always says and always said was, love and care everything around you.
Who always believes that wrinkles aren't anything to be ashamed of. There's something that everybody, every expression that we've had, every thought that we've had, every action that we do is etched on our face. And I looked at her face and I just saw amazing kindness. And to be honest, I can't even believe and get emotional talking about it. It's quite weird, but I just thought that.
The fruit of prayer is the deepening of faith. And the fruit of faith is love. And the fruit of love is service. And the fruit of service is peace. Works of love are works of peace.